Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us on our first ever non-live cooking class. Today we are going to go over the theory and technique, and also cook a few things, of outside grilling with wood, but it could easily be charcoal or propane. So let's get into it. The thing is that you can do this on any sort of format. I like cooking with wood, but you definitely don't need to. If you have a charcoal grill, you can apply the same effect. And yeah, get our fire going. And when you're starting your fire, it's important, one, that makes sure your fire actually catches, but two is to notice where the wind is going. The reason for this is we're going to set up two fires, and the idea behind this is I realize that most people just have a Weber grill when they're grilling outside, or they have a slightly nicer or larger grill, but you can still build two fires. And the reason that you want to have two fires is one is your embering out fire, and then the other fire is your ember fire when you're using wood. Same idea applies to charcoal. A really hot fire is hard to maintain temperature. It's just spiking all over the place. But once it embers out, that means whatever you're using has turned into just coals. It is much easier to control. So you move the embers from the hot fire to a cool fire that you can control. So our wind is actually going this way, as you can see from the smoke. So we are going to put our secondary fire, which is this over here, slightly on the angle of where the smoke is going, because when you're grilling, you really want the flavor of the smoke and the wood. Also, with that wind, it's going to be shifting that heat in that same direction. So you're basically cooking with off heat instead of direct heat most of the time. There are times that you want to cook with direct heat, and that is why you want to have the high heat and the low heat at different areas depending on what you're doing. All right, so the wind has definitely made this fire catch pretty good. I stacked it up, as you could tell, and the reason for that is we're actually going to break it down a tiny bit. Get into that wood pieces that we know are going pretty good, like this guy. And you can already see it kind of taking effect of what the secondary fire does, because the temperature is not that hot. But just look at all of that smoke. And once this fire gets going up nice and hot, it will actually be using the heat from this fire to cook all of that. So now that we're at a good level where I can throw my grill on, let's go ahead and do that and grab the rest of the mise en place. So we have our hot fire going right here and our not as hot fire going right here. And for the next few minutes, we're going to allow those fires to go, and more importantly, burn off any sort of residue that was on the grill. And then as soon as that's done, we're going to very quickly just wipe it down with some oil, and then we'll start cooking. All right, so our grill is burnt off. We have a bowl of oil, a shitty rag. The things we're going to cook today, I'm going vegetarian. If you bought meat, same rule applies though. The wind, if you've noticed, has slightly shifted as well. So I've moved the placement of the fires in the actual devices that the fires are in. But real quick before we actually get into cooking, let's do the sucky part. So you just have your worst towel. You can tell I've used this quite a few times to do this. Fold it up as many times as you can. Sometimes you can even like roll it and tie it with string, just dip it right in the oil. And your oil will make the fire flare up. That's okay. We're trying, well, not trying, we're actually very much succeeding in cleaning our grill. Smoky. There we go. See? Works. So let's get into actually cooking. So it's different for each fire and it's different for each grill, but you can feel where the heat is, where the smoke is going. This fire is much lower temperature than this fire on purpose, and you can feel the difference just by putting your hand in front of it. You can hold your hand here, well, I can indefinitely. Here, not so much. So we need to keep that in mind while we're grilling. So we're gonna make romesco, since this is my little riff on Spanish casetada. And if we look at the flame on this side, it's pushing this way and it's smoking. So we're actually just going to put our red peppers, I got one, half an onion, and Roma tomatoes right here. And then the trickiest part of this next part is actually not that tricky once you get the idea of it, is just fire maintenance. You want to keep the fires going at, did I just stick my hand in an open flame and grab a log? I did. Don't do that. So that it maintains a stable temperature. So this is why most people actually prefer grilling, is it's not that hard. It's mostly just sitting around and doing nothing and watching fire burn. And the most important part is just being a little bit patient and keeping that fire going. Here, actually, I'll take that. And minding your surroundings and how the environment is actually changing where your fire and where your smoke is going. And that's pretty much the long and short of it. All right, so we have our hot fire on our right and our colder fire on our left. This is our smoking fire, while this is our cooking fire at high temperature, and this is at cooking at low temperature. Right now we have our Roma tomatoes, onion, and red pepper, and the idea behind this whole thing right now is we are just imbuing it with smoke. You can pretty much hold your hand over here indefinitely and you won't get burned. Meanwhile, this one is completely different. So we have it flesh side down. I had it flesh side down for a little bit while I was stoking the fire. And we can already see just by the color that they are starting to smoke. They are not warm. They're still cold, but the smoke has already started to come through. Again, not warm. Well, that one's a little warm, but mostly not warm. And when you're cooking with, on a grill like this size, or have a table near a grill, I always like to put everything that I'm cooking right there because it's more smoke and it will imbue with more flavor and it comes to temperature much easier. So again, just relaxing, maintaining and managing your fire. the wind changed just a little bit for me, so I put the fire slightly away so that the heat could push towards the vegetables instead of lick the flames. But when you move the wood like I just did, flames start to take off a little bit, and all you do is just move it away. You're cooking in off heat, and that's your goal, is slow and low, or low and slow. Yeah, that fire started it. So this fire now is embering out. And you can see that there's not a lot of flame. This is the same kind of look that you would have if you were having a charcoal grill, where it doesn't look like it's on fire, but it's quite warm. A combination of off heat and embered out heat is ideal for cooking outside. So on our right, again, we have the hot and our low. Our hot is actually smoldered out a little bit, so it's actually smokier than our low, which sometimes happens when you work with wood. But it's completely different when you cook on with propane or charcoal. And there are all sorts of different techniques for cooking for all different types of heat sources in different size grills. And if you guys have any questions, you can message me. But for the sake of time, let's do it the way that I'm doing it, so that we can all benefit from that. So we have our scallions and our asparagus, since this is Castellata homage. Oh no, we'll have to grab that later. And we're gonna put it right here, just off of the heat. Yeah. Using your hand actually, for some odd reason, is a very good basis of how hot something is. So right here, I can't really do it, but right here, I can. And the reason behind that is, again, I want to push all that smoke. Our cold side has started to kick off a little bit. We're going to use that to our advantage for a second, because now moving from grilling theory to actual cooking process, romesco is pepper, onion, and tomato, charred over heat and smoke until the skins start to burn off, and then all the juices start to come out, and then we buzz it up in a rovo coupe, and then these grilled off, we dip in the romesco after it's all buzzed up. Drink a bunch of rosé and eat some harissa marinated lamb. But I didn't want to be too complicated with that, so we're just doing the calçots, green onions, and asparagus to dip into the romesco. All right, we've switched fires because the wind is all over the place today. But that is exactly the reason that we set up two fires, so that this is a perfect example actually, so that when one fire actually starts to pick up like this is, we can move it to our secondary fire, which may have been our low fire at the time or the high fire, because anything can change when you're cooking outside. That's why sometimes it's deemed as the most difficult. So you can tell our red peppers are there. And the reason you can tell is because they're soft and also turning black, which is a good thing. That is a very good thing. And our tomatoes are charred on the outside and charred on the not inside, but the other side, to the point where you can actually go like this. This is what we're going for when you make romesco. You need the skin to be able to come easily off. It's easier for the skin to come off when you're not doing it over a really hot fire. But the easiest way to do this, I'll show you, is to take your tomatoes, put them in a bowl, and your red pepper, also in a bowl. Gonna let that guy go a little bit longer because he's not quite black. So we're gonna put him on the hottest part of the grill. And meanwhile, we have all these veggies in this bowl, and they're still hot, obviously, but they're also giving off heat, so we're going to trap that heat and steam them with plastic wrap, or in my case, a towel. So that looks good. Let that sit just for a few minutes. It'll also help it cool it down, and then that will bring us back to the last bit. We don't want these guys directly over the fire. Same technique that we've been applying the entire time. So again, where you can kind of stand the heat, that's a good level to be at. I am going to go buzz this up real quick to make romesco. You typically season it with smoked paprika. I like to put cumin and coriander in there. Traditionally, it is thickened up with bread. I thicken it up with bread or cauliflower, or don't thicken it up at all. It's entirely up to you. So I'm gonna go do that real quick. This, I'm gonna leave out just where it is right now while I do this. Not even gonna worry about the fire. So I'll see you in a little bit. Okay, our romesco is all buzzed up, looks delicious, and our scallions, green onions, and asparagus have become bright green, which indicates that they are done. So let's get to the fun part. And get these puppies off the heat. This is how you celebrate cassatata. It is with a very warm onion that you should let cool down. And you just dip it into the romesco. And that's it. It's delicious. Super easy to make. I want you to understand how to make it. Smoky, grilly, delicious, oniony. It's great. Thanks for joining us on our first not live cooking class. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to DM us. Thanks, guys, and cheers.